Hello and welcome back to another Board Crazy review. This time we are reviewing Cage Match. My name is D. I am joined, as ever, by these guys.
I'm Graham.
Yeah.
Who are you?
I am.
Who are you? How are you?
I am the musician Jack Johnson, who's transitioned into mixed martial arts.
Got it.
And your name?
But my real name is Will.
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Great. Glad that we got that out of the way.
D, let's review this MMA fight game.
Okay, we will do that, but before we do that, we're going to run my introduction to the game from our gameplay video. If you haven't seen that, give you a brief idea of how the game works. And if you don't want to watch that, if you want to skip ahead to us reviewing this game, you can click on the time listed on the graphic that pops up. So here that goes.
Did you say click on it?
I said click to the time. Did he? Cage Match is a game for two players designed by John Lash and published by Geektopia Games. It's a tabletop simulation of a mixed martial arts fight, with both players controlling their own fighter who has their own unique fighting style. The first player to knock out their opponent or force them to submit wins the game. To set up, both players select their fighters and then agree to a weight class. The weight class determines how many hit points both fighters' heads and bodies have, and then these numbers are recorded on the scorecard. Both players will also take an action pad, which is placed standing side up behind their screens, and then will also receive one action cube. At the start of every turn, players will place their action cube on the desired maneuver of their choice. Players may also spend additional focus tokens they've earned if they so choose. These focus tokens can increase die rolls or add additional damage to attacks. The actions selected are then revealed and resolved. Every combination of actions the players choose has a specific outcome detailed on the fight cards. For example, if both players throw a jab, then both attacks do full damage. Players then also gain or lose focus depending on the move performed. Every fighter also has some passive abilities as well as two special moves and two combos. Special moves are more powerful than regular moves, but they always cost focus. Combos are a string of up to 3 different attacks on a single turn. However, there are contested die rolls involved that may cut a combo short. A knockout occurs if a player's head or body is ever reduced to 0 hit points. A submission, meanwhile, must occur while the fighters are on the ground. If the dominant player goes for a submission attempt and the opponent does not block or counter, then there are 2 contested dice rolls, and if the dominant player wins both, then the submission is successful and the fight is over. Now, it's time. Okay, so now everyone understands sort of how Cage Match works. It is a mixed martial art fight in board game form. I guess we should start with, how does it work as an approximation of a MMA fight? I personally would say I think it actually does pretty well, in at least in terms of capturing the feel. At least for me as a viewer watching you guys duke it out, I was like, okay, I can kind of imagine this in my head.
And since you have actual MMA fighting experience,
yeah. He's the only fighter to lose to CM Punk, actually. So
Laid down for him.
Yeah,
I think it works well. I like it. I think it's pretty simple. There's not much to it, but it's
it's a fight. You hit and you try not to get hit.
Yeah,
fights are simple. More when it comes down to it.
I think one of the ways it most closely mimics the actual sport is that it moves quickly.
Yep.
Like it definitely, I thought the flow is what I'm trying to say. The gameplay flow of you choose your move, which shouldn't take that long. It could if you have Graham or someone else who's overly analytical. But no, like the choosing the move, the revealing. Often you don't even have to roll dice. So then it's move after move, which is pretty similar to the actual
flows
sport.
well. I would say that in its success of capturing the feeling of mixed martial arts, I think that also leads to both pros and cons. In the same way that the sport itself kind of has pros and cons, where you're going to have fights in this game which are just completely one-sided and boring and probably unfun for one of the players, while the other player's having a really good time because they're,
kicking butt.
Yep.
Also, the speed at which it can happen. There was moments where all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I'm only a few points away from being knocked out, and I felt we were only a few moves into the game, which can happen. You have those fights where it's just 2 or 3 punches and the guy's knocked out and he's down on the ground.
Yeah.
So it's...
best case scenario, you're going to have a fight where both players are sort of getting worn down at the same pace, and there may be some tension at the end. Okay.
2 things. One, they have that lead because they probably did play a better strategy.
Sure. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's not going to necessarily be a fun experience for everyone involved.
And two, they made a really clever decision to offer every fighter combos. And these combos are a great way to make a comeback. Because if you might have you do like roll-offs, but if you get that first hit in, I'm looking at Jack Johnson, I think you could. I think it says in the rulebook that they put the combos in the game to allow for players who are getting beaten hard to come back. Just like in a real fight, a guy might be getting pummeled, but if all of a sudden he hits a jab, a hook, and then takes the guy to the ground, all of a sudden he could be literally a bloody mess. But if he submits that guy on the ground, it doesn't matter. He still wins the fight.
Sure.
A great thing I want to throw in there though is even when that happens though, if it is a quick knockout, the game is so short. It's not like you spent 45 minutes where you're just kind of now dragging through a game where you're like, okay, I know I'm going to lose and I just kind of got to play this through. It's like, okay, I lost, but it only took 5 minutes. So who cares? We'll just play again.
That is
right?
true. That's definitely true. I do one other thing. I just want a little criticism I have before I get to maybe some more things that I do like about the game is that there is compared to an actual fight, there's a necessary almost lack of drama because whereas in a actual MMA fight, a guy could be losing and then just boom, one punch and he won the fight.
Yeah.
You don't see it coming necessarily, and that kind of excitement can happen. That's not really possible in this. There's no one move where you're like, oh, okay, I've knocked the person out from a massive lead.
Yeah.
You have to whittle them down to some degree. You can, there are some obviously the attack you can do 20-ish damage, but they're still it's a concession for fairness.
Yeah, and also this game is trying to appeal to a broader range of gamers other than just people who like MMA.
Yeah.
And you could have made a heavier game that would have more nuance and more little intricate rules, and then you could have walk-off punch.
I don't know if you know if that would have been a viable option. It's just it's a limitation of a board game versus real life. But it is so.
None of that really bothered me necessarily that I couldn't one punch knock out someone. I would say though that I think the game could have done or should have done maybe just a bit to tweak the parry and strike. And this is not something I was definitely annoyed when you were doing it in the game. Because you threw it I want to say 5 or 6 times in the second, and it really devastates you because it does 6 damage to the body. Mm-hmm. I think I should maybe do 4. Or just a little bit fewer. Not necessarily because people in real life don't defend, but in this kind of game, you could. It's one of those things where if you have someone who's really aggressive and they want to try out a bunch of moves, but then every time they try something out, it's parry and strike is what they're met with. Yeah, it kind of is I don't know. It's a little disappointing. If you're I'm going to throw a roundhouse kick and then parry strike and you take damage. That happens enough. I could see certain aggressive players just being
there's a way. The shoot throw action does damage.
Counter it. Yeah. Yes, I know. But some people
go to the ground.
Might get a player who like Greg O'Connor, who's more of a boxer, and his specialty is to stay on his feet and hit. Yeah. Because some people like that. I know a lot of people who watch MMA don't like it when they go to ground. They want to.
Well, it's less exciting, probably. Yeah. But even
so, there are going to be people who want to stay on their feet.
If Greg O'Connor is a legitimate fighter, he would have. He would go to ground when he had to.
Yes, and I agree with you.
I think one of the things that I mostly agree with Will here with the parry and strike is it feels a little bit. With the parry and strike, I don't think it's something that's always a given, Mm-hmm. It is right. It's parry and strike feels like a very safe choice to make in this game. It's almost a little bit too easy. I'm because if I'm ever afraid that he's gonna throw a shoot or a throw, I actually think parry and strike combats everything except the shoot
and throw.
Yeah. Even then, it's
another parry strike would just cancel it out.
And another, would cancel it out. Yeah. But maybe one of these are, maybe it would be better with a roll off or something like that.
Yeah, the game is not finished. We haven't really talked about that yet. This is a work in progress still.
It didn't bother me as much. Maybe it's because I was the one who was doing most of the parry and strikes, but I could see how that would get.
Yeah, if that's how the fight's going to go, that's how it's going to go. I think I can sort of transition that into the fighters themselves. There are 12 of them in the game, 6 men, 6 women on these double-sided cards, and they all have their own fighting specialty and style, and they have their own special moves. They have their own combos. So you can have a fight where the fights will be, I think, noticeably different depending on who is being used, which I think is pretty cool. It may not be most of the moves in the game are going to be on your the basic ones on the thing, but this having the passive abilities and these other things, they do enough so that the players will adjust their strategies to their strengths, just like in a real fight.
Oh,
and that's going to create situations where there's different advantages and disadvantages between the matchups.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually one of my favorite parts about the game is the differences between the fighters themselves, because it did feel like I was choosing a strategy when I went into to the fight. I forget who and they make it clear what your strategy should be, right? I get a +1 on all shoots, throws, submission attempts, so I got to try to get
ground.
people on the ground. Yeah. And so that's...
And the game also, I think, rewards knowing what your opponent is good and bad at.
Right, exactly.
You can sort of prepare in that way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't want to talk about the components really as far as their quality goes, because this is not a finished product. This may not be what the game actually looks like when it comes out.
But I do like the general layout of the game and how it's going to be.
Yeah, it all works
very well.
All makes sense, and I like the tables are easy to read for the most part.
And it's always good to have a.
Yep. And the results on these tables make a lot of sense to me as well.
Yeah, no,
I didn't mention that. It's not really something we need to go in depth on, but like for instance, if both fighters throw a jab, no one's blocking, then both attacks should do full damage. You don't need to roll off. So stuff like little things like that, it was savvy in its design.
So anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, and then also that because of these charts, this game could have easily been one fighter choosing a move, another fighter choosing a move. They both roll. Whoever gets the highest wins, and then just what move you did determines what damage you do. Instead, they
I prefer this.
I much prefer this. Yeah, this is way better.
Yeah, this is a clever way to do it.
That's all luck at that point. That is just.
This game feels like a really good balance of luck and skill.
Yeah, I agree. That's.
We're just going to grade this as it currently is, right?
Yes.
We can't give it a final score really, but this is a preliminary score at least of Cage Match. I think it's a fun game. I think it's got a lot going for it. I'll give it like I said, preliminary. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's close to a 4 already. I think it could easily get to a 4 once it's a more polished, finished product.
Yeah, and 3.5 is what you give to games that you're like.
They're games I like but don't love.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where this is currently at.
As it stands, I really like this game. I think it's quick and fun and very well balanced for what could have been a very unbalanced game. As right now, I'll give it 2 thumbs up.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the highest marks.
Yeah. I don't have many grades to give. It's very
true.
So I gotta decide where it's closer to. It's closer to 2 thumbs up than 1 thumb up. But I enjoyed it, yeah.
I didn't know how to manage my expectations going in this one, because I am, more than you guys, a fan of MMA and the UFC, and I even watch Bellator occasionally.
That is true.
This game does, I think, just a really good job of taking the most simple elements of MMA and like what makes MMA appealing, and like encapsulating it in like a small board game package. And for that reason, I think I'm going to give it a B+. And the only reason it hasn't reached that A range for me is because we sort of talked about it. I just don't know if there's the overall depth there yet. Maybe it's because I like MMA that I want just a few more caveats. But again, this game is called Cage Match, the MMA fight game. I believe it's the full title.
Yep.
And if you want more information on the game, you can go to geektopiagames.com. They're the publisher of the game. You can go to facebook.com/geektopiagames, or you can follow the designer on Twitter @geektopiagames. And I'll put all that information in the description below.
Yeah, and thanks to all of them for sending us this to take a look at. So that was our video. We hope you enjoyed that as well. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff we love to see from you. Every time a number ticks up, we smile.
Which one?
Dislikes? That's the one. We go out and we have a big steak dinner.
We've done our job.
And you can come back this Friday, if you're watching this new, where we will be, only one way is we're going to be having an election.
People's favorite topic is presidential elections. Yeah, so
that's coming up. Look out for that. Until then, though, thank you for watching, everybody. See you later.
What?
They
also
do I have to submit
I feel like he's going to hit me.
Do I have to
Make him tap. Bye.